Welcome everyone to season 2, episode 2 of the WYT Podcast. I'm Eric.
I'm Vince.
And we have an exciting show for you today where we're going to talk about a few different things from the stimulus package and the long-term effects of it to navigating through this pandemic as a 20-year-old and how to not become dumb after school. So let's get right into it.
All right, guys. So for today's Hit the Brakes or Carry On topics, we have how the pandemic has affected the job market. So, Eric, how do you feel about that?
I'd say we can carry on with that. I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory. It was not the best market before the pandemic, and this thing just kind of makes it, jobs less scarce. So I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
And I agree with that.
What about you?
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. So the second topic is going to be the stimulus package and long-term effect it may have on society.
Okay. That's interesting. That's an interesting topic. I would say we could hit the brakes on that because there's a couple things I wrote down where I know one thing a lot of people worry about is the tax increases. Like with all the government spending that they're doing right now, it's like, are we going to have to pay higher taxes in the future? That's not something anybody wants really. So that'll be interesting. An interesting thing to watch. And then secondly, the investing risks. A lot of people with more money in their pockets now are going to want to make more investments that they might not be able to sustain in the long term. So that'll be interesting to see how that affects the market and if it will affect people that didn't invest at all. And so, yeah, that's something to watch as well. What do you think?
So I feel like, the stimulus feels as though it kind of positioned us to redirect the attention of our leaders because most Americans will be caught up in the, what it can do to help me buy or accomplish phase. Because, money in all its glory has power over us in our trying times. So like with that said, if the government decides to give us this stimulus, for example, money has control over everything that a lot of people do. A lot of people are going to take it. They're going to try to invest with it. A lot of people are going to take it. They're going to try to just put food on the table or cover immediate expenses. With that being said, you have to kind of look at the position the government's trying to be on. It's like, do we want to look like the bad guys or do we want to kind of make them feel like we tried or we tried to put something out there? But I feel like it's kind of a short-term solution to a fleet of problems because we still have families in America who are without funding to put food on the table. They have a lack of business resources as all the reserves are basically exhausted. And they now have a newfound loss of trust for those in charge of a country that we were raised to believe in. Because a lot of people had businesses before the pandemic, happened. A lot of people were doing good. Everything has structure. I'm pretty sure you remember back when it first began, it was either you're poor or you're rich, or you're someone who, does day trading all day, or you're someone who's fortunate enough to, come up on some money or, get involved in Bitcoin or something like that.
Right.
If you look at the now, after the pandemic or during the pandemic, for a lot of people, we have people who are trapped in their homes because they can't make their mortgage payments. They're on some type of assistance program with the bank. Obviously, that's going to come to an end soon. Just like how we have, landlords with their tenants. Tenants didn't have to pay rent for a long time. So all that money was just piling up because at the end of the day, a mortgage payment is a mortgage payment. That's something that's deferred for a little while, yes. But it's still a mortgage payment. It's a way for you to secure your property and keep your property. A lot of people have businesses. With businesses, especially a restaurant, for example, you have an exhaust fan that needs to be maintained. You have a bunch of waiters and waitresses that need to be paid. You have a lot of things in there that need to be maintained. You have, electric bills, light bills, gas bills. You have vendors. You have everything that's still coming in. So export and import is something that's still something you're trying to withstand. But you can't because you're not getting a lot of consumers because now that we're in the pandemic, people aren't able to go to work, which means people aren't spending money, which means people are trying to be more conservative. That's why I kind of feel like it's a short-term solution to a fleet of problems. A stimulus is not really going to fix all those big name problems. And it's only a matter of time before us as the people, we get tired of it. And, we kind of backfire in it and society changes as a whole. And ultimately, I feel like it's going to make people hold on to their money. People are going to start putting money under the mattress again. They're going to start taking their money out of the stock market. Things are going to be really bad before they get really good. So that's kind of how I feel about the long-term effect it's going to have on society as a whole.
Okay.
Want to add anything to that?
About. Nope. No. I'm good. Yeah, that's you made a lot of good points there.
All right. So the next topic is going to be the benefits of self-love. Do you want to hit the brakes or you want to carry on from that?
Yeah, definitely hit the brakes on that one. that's something I feel like I'm always talking about, just like in regular conversation. I think self love is something that this generation is severely lacking, for a few different reasons. But I think the main benefit of self love is that you won't tolerate disrespect,
True.
and if you let people, they'll disrespect you on a regular basis, especially in our generation. So, I think the main benefit is you won't tolerate disrespect, and then also is that you won't be a burden to other people, because when we don't love ourselves in like the fullest extent, we try to compensate for that by demanding too much from other people and expecting too much from other people. So I think if think about the self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like if you have friends or family that are kind of like putting you down or just
Hmm.
don't support you enough, you're going to think you don't necessarily deserve to be supported. And so you're going to try to make up for that by getting everyone to show you love. And this is life is not pretty sometimes. It's a cold world we live in,
Yeah.
and people aren't going to want to give you that love. So you just can't set yourself up for disappointment when you don't get that love. So I think there's a lot of benefits to self love. Hopefully, it becomes more of a common thing and more than something just to post on Instagram or Twitter. Hopefully people live by it and demand and practice self love.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying. And as far as self love goes, there are definitely a lot of benefits. You know, we're I mean we're in our mid 20s, but there's still a lot of people that we need to meet, a lot of people that we might influence. One day we might have kids, so there it goes. That's a huge person that you need to influence. Um, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if you don't have the self love, how are you going to influence that individual? How are you going to stop that person from growing up and hating you, or possibly growing up and being depressed? Or being sad, or looking in the mirror and not believing in what they seeing. So ultimately, self love has a lot of benefits. If you're the kind of person who sits down, who does yoga all day, or tries to invest time in yourself, you do see the difference that comes out of that. Versus someone who just I hate myself. I'm gonna smoke this weed all day. I'm gonna just I lost my job during the pandemic. I'm not even gonna try again. There aren't gonna be restaurants ever again because I was a waiter, and now that's a thing of the past. If you're someone who's stuck in that mindset, it's a never ending whirlwind of nonsense and put downs, and
Negativity.
yeah, and networks that you'll never find the bridge to basically cross to get to. Versus if you have the self love, your life is gonna benefit from it. Yes, it's gonna be hard at first because if you're someone who's never done that before, obviously you're gonna be put to the test. But ultimately,
Hmm.
your life is gonna respond to whatever you're putting out into the universe, because we are, if we whether we like it or not, we are all um examples of what we live by. We're all examples of what we believe in, and we're all examples of things to come. If you're someone who sits down, you think about your future all day, or you're someone who implements strategies, or someone who writes everything down, and spend that time with yourself that someone would spend with a 5-year-old trying to learn the ABCs, you're definitely going to have something that's going to come from that in the long run. So I feel like there are definitely a lot of benefits to self love.
Right. Totally agree.
So our next hit the brakes or carry on topic is going to be navigating through the pandemic as a mid-20 millennial. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, definitely want to hit the brakes on that one too. It's just this experience that we've been having, us being in our mid 20s and being in this pandemic that just seems like it won't end. I think like with anything else, there's pros and cons. So I'll say there's one pro I have, and that's that this pandemic being in our mid 20s is forcing us to be less distracted. I think people are finding new hobbies, whether it's artistically, um, whether it's a sport that they can pick up that doesn't involve too much interaction with other people, or just things they want to learn more about, whether it's stock markets, reading music, things like that. So I think it's forcing us to have less distraction, which is good because otherwise we would have just been just engaging in so many different things that might be short term, but we
Yeah,
can learn
true.
something that we like and stick with for life and get better at it. So I think that's a good thing. Um, Not to the negatives, I would say this generation is lacking interpersonal communication because of like social media, and I think it's causing less interpersonal communication, which is something we need more of. We needed more of before the pandemic, and now there's even less of it. I think that's because the way people act in our generation, not to sound like preachy or old, but is, a lot of people don't feel obligated to be a decent human being to other people because they know they're not going to have to see them face to face. So they may ghost someone, or they may say something rude, or they, disrespectful, or, just handle
Facts.
something totally different than what people would, our ancestors would have handled it in a different way than our ancestors would have handled it, because they know they got to see that person at some point. Well, now there's a good chance you don't have to see that person, so you just do whatever. So I think, causing interpersonal communication to drop off. So that's one con. Another con I would say is there's less dating going on because people are scared to meet up. I mean, I've been involved with a few different girls throughout this pandemic, but a lot of people don't even want to do that because it's like, if I go on a date, it's like, I don't know, am I going to catch it? Am I going to
Yeah,
spread it to my
risking it all.
family with COVID and everything? Right. I mean, I move safely, but for some people, they may not even want to take that chance,
Yeah.
and it kind of makes us be a little more active on dating apps. Now, I'm on them, but I personally hate dating apps. I think it's a platform that allows us to be dishonest and lack accountability. And now that's like the main source of meeting people, unless you're like physically reporting to work and there's people coming through there. But so I hate that, the fact that we have to rely so much on dating apps. That's another con. And then the last con is less traveling. I think um, traveling is a great thing to do, especially for people that have this timeline in their head of, oh, by the time I'm 30, I want to be settled down, married with kids and all that. And now I won't have time to do it based off my career too. Like, there's just a lot of things that people take into account with this timeline, which is not a good timeline to have, by the way. Uh,
Yeah.
Things don't happen
Facts.
according to plan usually. So, but yeah, less traveling I feel like is what's affecting us, because you want to do as much traveling as you can in your 20s, but I feel like we're not able to do as much. So one pro and three cons for me. What about you?
Um, I'll definitely say it's a topic that you know definitely does have a lot of pros and cons in it. But I'll say ultimately throughout everything that has happened throughout the pandemic, being someone who's in their mid 20s, um, it's been a time to kind of stop and think about everything that I used to do, everything I'm doing now, and everything actually want to do in the future. This is a pandemic. This is something that's serious. This is something that
Yeah.
has hit the pause button on everyone's life. And it's not something
Mm-hmm.
that just affected one person or one ethnicity group as a whole. This is something this is something that's global. So with that being said, it gives you the opportunity to look how your life was. It gives you the opportunity to see how your life has changed, and also gives you the opportunity to think about how, in the event that this were to happen again, things that you don't want to have happen to you, things that you don't want to have happen to people you love, having that awareness and being able to educate people, in the future, or even like, for example, like before I said, we might have kids one day, we're going to be their influencers, having that conversation that allows them to understand how the importance of saving money and actually understanding that, you can put out those Jordans for another year because they're still going to be hot 2 years down the line, or, thinking before you submit that Fashion Nova order because you already have clothes in your closet. Just little tiny things that you could literally stop and think about before doing it. You know, it's huge, and it's unfortunate that our generation is always a generation that gets hit by the wrecking ball. Because I don't know if you remember when we left middle school, that's when they started pushing out the big Mac computers, and that's when they started getting laptops in every classroom. That's when kids started learning on smart boards, and we had encyclopedias and books. So
Yeah, I remember
you
everyone was
know
like, "Oh, smartboard."
yeah, and then we went to high school. Same thing happened to us. We left high school. That's when they have for number one, they had more clubs that you could sign up for. They were more aware of cyberbullying and what it was. When we had Twitter or whatever, like me personally, if I wore the wrong clothes to school, that's 8 hours of me being in the wrong clothes. So if I wore a bright yellow shirt from Foreman Mills, that's 8 hours of me being in that bright yellow shirt from Foreman Mills, and that's 8 hours of me being retweeted throughout Twitter because everyone's laughing and retweeting, Vince's fit, so
Yeah.
it's crazy. It's crazy how, we always tend to get hit by the wrecking ball, but it's also fortunate because here we are in this pandemic. Here we are in this environment with everyone else who's also being forced to, reflect and think about what's to come. Um, but
Mm-hmm.
we're in our mid 20s. It might not feel like we have
Right.
a lot of time left, but we have a lot of time if you think about it. we haven't really scratched the surfaces yet. Some of us have, some of us have gotten married, some of us have started up businesses, but the majority of us, we haven't really gotten the chance to actually soak our feet in what we're actually trying to do. A lot of us began our careers, but a lot of us also couldn't advance in our careers because of the pandemic. So
Hmm.
it's definitely a lot to think about, and there are definitely a lot of pros and cons. And I want everyone in the comments to kind of list your pros and cons of being a mid 20 millennial, or even if you're just starting off, just share your ideas, share things that you've been through throughout the pandemic. So the next hit
And
the
to
brakes
touch
or
on something
carry
else
on.
you said before,
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, I just want to say to touch on something that you said before about like, it may seem like we don't have that much time left. That's like the biggest thing about. That's like the worst habit of people in their mid 20s is they think, oh no, I don't have something figured out by now. I'm never gonna learn it. It's over. My life's done. It's stop being so extreme. Stop being
Yeah,
so final about things. Yeah, you may not have things done that you wanted to have done at this age, but that doesn't mean it's over. You're not gonna learn it. So just don't give up on yourself. But what are you gonna say about the next topic?
that's facts. So the next hit the brakes or carry on topic is going to be holidays. So are they a time for marketing,
Okay.
or are they a time for actual celebration?
I would say we could carry on that one because I think it's self-explanatory as well, just like the job market thing. For families, it's about self reflection and family time and all that, and then for businesses, it's marketing. So I would say just carry on that. Unless
Yeah,
you want
yeah,
to
I agree.
hit the
No,
brakes.
we could carry on from that. So for today's "What in the World" segment, we're gonna have Twitter versus Trump supporters. So Eric, how do you feel about that?
I think this is something that's been going on since 2015.
Yeah,
Before Trump was even elected on that dreadful day of November 8th, I believe it was 2016. It's funny to watch because like since Twitter suspended Trump's account and Instagram did the same thing and Facebook and all these others followed suit. It's been funny to watch the hypocrisy. But I mean, there's so much of that in this country in general. But now that his speech has been taken away, they were talking about like big tech and stuff like that and taking away free speech, free speech. But when we were kneeling with Colin Kaepernick protesting police brutality, that was our speech being taken away or being criticized rather. Um,
right.
we did the silent protest for Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Tamir Rice, all that. George Floyd, that's peaceful protest, but we're being told it's wrong. But for them, it's different. It's a double standard. So that's something that's interesting to me. And it's just funny because like they're trying to ignore Trump's role in the insurrection that took place on Capitol Hill on January 6th. When they stormed the Capitol with those angry Trump supporters, and they're just trying to ignore his role in that. So it's funny to see them complain like, "Oh, they're taking the speech away. They're taking the speech away," because like that's what they try to do to us all the time. Maybe they haven't done it because we didn't take away our Twitter accounts, but maybe for those who have been at least cognizant of what's going on, they're spewing hate. We're not. We're spewing equality, and so it's not spewing. We're just preaching equality, and that's a problem. But they can spew hate, and we're supposed to just let that rock. And the last thing I'll say is it's been nice with the lack of Trump on our timelines. Him being silent, the only time we hear about him is when he's doing something and the news channels report about it. So it's a beautiful thing with this silence, I would say. What about you?
I say I definitely agree with that. I also want to add that I feel like Trump has his little. I call them Trump minions. It's like he has his little army of supporters that are just following behind him, doing whatever he says, and basically,
Yeah, die for him.
neglecting, yeah, like neglecting their beliefs, neglecting where they come from, or neglecting humans as a whole. At the end of the day, there was an officer who lost his life in there. Throughout all that nonsense, there's a human, an entire soul in there that's not going to be able to touch his kids anymore and pick them up when he comes to the door, or even tell his wife that he's home or anything like that. You know, a mother lost
Nothing.
her son because of some nonsense that happened um, for this guy. But ultimately, you need to we all have to stop and think. You know, yes, everyone can be upset over the fact that their good old Trump is not being back in office again, for his supporters, I should say. But you also need to
Yeah.
stop and think and understand like where this guy comes from. This guy comes from a family who literally believes in marketing and building wealth. With those two things being said, this entire president election, this entire everything that led up to this was based on Twitter, based on him understanding marketing and him understanding. Because all right, let's rewind. Let's go all the way back to the beginning when Trump was trying to get in office. Let's talk about the amount of money that was being donated um, to his organization, his group, in order to start the funding for him to become president. Think about the people that were investing that money into Trump for him to get where he was. Think about everything that happened when he was supposed to let go of his businesses, but they basically had to pry him off of them. Um, just think about everything that happened. This guy is a marketing genius. This guy's show Apprentice was on before we even heard about Shark Tank. This guy was the one who was getting these young millionaires who now young millionaires the ability to start their businesses. So look where he's come from. Look where we all know him from, and look at what's in front of us right now. It's okay to support something that you believe in, but you need to ask yourself, am I supporting something that's going to benefit the future? Am I supporting something that's going to benefit me right now? And am I supporting something that's making total sense? Because this doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah.
What happened the other day is an embarrassment. Right. We have all these other world leaders who are having press conferences to talk about America and what happened. That's the bigger picture. We all need to worry about our reputation as a country.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also unfortunate because when African Americans were out there, marching for Black Lives Matter, or marching for the simple fact that it's taking close to a year to get some justice in this corrupted system for someone who was wrongfully murdered in their own home. It makes you upset at the fact that, these group of individuals got so close to something that is so cherished in our history. They weren't pepper sprayed. They weren't tased. They weren't shot. They weren't beat down to the ground. Nothing. It's like everyone was on vacation at the same time and everyone was throwing this big party and they didn't care what happened. At the end of the day, we have confidential documents that were taken. We have laptops that were taken. We have everything that was taken. And then the ultimate answer that we can get is, hey, public, do you think you can look through those pictures and tell us who you think that is, or, help us find this piece of equipment? Like what? So it's something that is mind blowing, yeah. And I feel like it's something that needs to be addressed. This is more than just a CNN article or something that you see when you turn the TV on. This is something that needs to be addressed. I'm not saying that
absolutely
that I don't want to put that kind of pressure on Biden as a new president or anyone who's in charge, but it's something that has to be addressed. It's something that can't happen again, and these Trump supporters they need to be put in check. So I feel like what Twitter is doing is segment one, but we need a segment two. Especially the African American community. We don't ever get a break. If anything happens, we're on the news first. Anything that happens in our neighborhoods, that news truck is in our neighborhood first. So
right.
It's just a lot for everyone to kind of stop and think about.
And I also said like it's just interesting to see. I posted about it recently where it's just like just Trump supporters. I said I hope they do a study on them one day because it's just something wild to see that they ride so hard for this man. They would take a bullet for him and with no hesitation. I think his male supporters would his heterosexual male supporters would let him date and do whatever with their girlfriends and wives. Like they have such blind loyalty to this man that it's like I've never seen it. But it makes sense though, because when you think about from the birth of this nation until now, we've been told these non-inclusive ideals are a thing of the past. We've been told that's a thing of the past. Like we've grown from that. That's not how we are anymore. And then this guy comes along and he tells him it's okay to still think like that. And that's why those people that follow him look at him as this is our mouthpiece. This is our guy that we can get behind. And we're just going to say little code words like MAGA, which means make America white again, really. And they're going to say vote red. And, they're trying to take our rights away. They just know these little things to say just because it's not socially acceptable to say, I'm racist. I don't like people that aren't white, basically aren't WASPs. For those who don't know, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, if they're not that, they shouldn't be here. Like they can't say that. So they say these little, subliminal remarks and messages to go along with that. And so I know that to me that it when you think about it like that, it makes sense why that they follow him that way. But it's still just crazy to see. I mean, something I don't think that enough people take into account is that for Black people and just people of color in general, it's traumatizing that, given our history with, slavery and just mistreatment, discrimination, all that, it's traumatizing that someone even still exists in this country in 2021 or even in 2016 that thinks like him, let alone the fact that enough people voted for him to put him in office. Someone that thinks like that. Like, we're supposed to be on the same page of those things being like in the past, So it's like the fact that it's not in the past, it's right here. And they want this person to be the president. It's just a scary thing. I mean, still around 75 million people voted for him this time, even though they were unsuccessful. The fact that many people want that, they saw 4 years of this guy, all the
Yeah.
bigotry, the racism, and all that, and still said, "I want more of that." So it's just crazy to see. But that's all I have to say on the Twitter versus Trump supporters.
So for the next segment, we're gonna be adding a hear me out. So for that segment, I basically have adulting in a lump sum. So how do you feel about that?
What do you mean by that?
So when I say adulting in a lump sum, I'm basically looking at the course of you being 18, being told you're an adult, you being 26 years old, 27, and everything that basically happened, along that timeline up until now. How would you like? What would be the pros and cons that you want to basically summarize from your adulting in a lump sum?
Uh, there's definitely been pros and cons. It hasn't been easy for sure, but I would say the pros obviously graduated high school. I mean, I don't look at. I mean, some people don't, so it's an accomplishment. But like that's to me, that's like
Yeah.
a given. I'm definitely supposed to graduate high school. So graduated high school, graduated college, made some lifelong friends. I studied abroad for a semester, so I was in Rome. I got to visit Athens, Paris, Prague, Amsterdam. So did that traveling. That was fun. Uh, pretty active social life, things of that nature. So that's good. Made different friends and connections, throughout my career so far. So, I would say it's been pretty good. But life is a roller coaster. Nothing. If it's just exponential growth, then the fall is going to be hard when you face it because we all fall at some point. Not to like the point where you can't get back up. But
Yeah.
there's roadblocks in life. There's bumps in the road. So I would say as a lump sum, it has its ups and its downs, but that's expected, I would say. What about for
Right.
you?
I'll speak on it, and I'll also speak on it for anyone who's like 17, 18. Because at 17, you're thinking about when you're 18, and you feel like it's an exciting time, which it is. But it does come with a lot more to learn. There's a lot more to 18 than being the most popular kid in high school, or getting to the chicken nuggets or the piece of first when it's in the lunch line. There's a lot more things that come down the line when you think about adulting as a whole. And a lot of us are going to be fortunate. A lot of us are going to be able to graduate high school on time. A lot of us are going to actually be able to graduate from college, and a lot of us are going to be able to have experiences after college as a young adult that can kind of influence our direction. Like you said, you mentioned you went to Rome. I'm sure that trip to Rome was more than just a trip to Rome. Like everything you saw there, how the people were, the culture, it was number one was a culture shock because you're seeing people who have different beliefs, a different way of living, and just a different ideology on life altogether. I'm pretty sure that's something that had to be mind blowing, something that probably molded you and shaped you into who you are today. I feel like those things are very important for someone who's a young adult, because it aids your direction. It kind of because it's always good for us to have different perspective. Me personally, I have family that's in Jamaica, both rich and poor, so I get to see both sides of it. I get to see some of my cousins who never had shoes before, but they have all the happiness in their heart. That's something that I take in, and it influences me, and it makes me realize that there's more to life than an Apple Watch or an iPhone or things that people worship. And when you see the other side, it also lets you know that there's more to life than what other people think about you, or what other people say about what you're wearing, or what other people want to say to you, just so you can be a stepping stool, be like a stepping stool for them. Because a lot of people, they're gonna look at your accomplishments as a downfall, and then they're gonna literally go down the same path that you went down. But the only difference is they're gonna try to have that path without including you. So, with that being said, there comes a time where you kind of have to Stop for a second, have an out of body experience. Act like you're that person that you never met down the street that bumped into you, and think about what that person saw. Think about the people that are around you that person saw. I don't mean to be so complex, but that's kind of how it is. You know, when you're trying to go through adulting, when you're trying to figure out where you're going, you're looking for a destination. Even though I personally feel like we never really reach a destination, even when we get old, because life is something that keeps changing. You know, technology is something that's here. I have a Bluetooth earbud in my ear. This is something that was not there when me and Eric were in fifth grade. Like, I remember, pretty sure you remember I had the CD player that was skipping the bus all the time. You know, so
Me
with
too.
that being said, technology is something that, you know, it keeps changing, it keeps evolving. And not only does technology change or evolve, but we do as well. There was a time where none of us had facial hair. There was a time where you didn't have a tattoo on your arm. You know, there was a time where everything was different.
I was born
So,
with this ink. What you talking about?
yeah, so, you know, ultimately, what's on the outside can be the only thing that changes. That also has to change on the inside. We need to, like our last topic, Twitter versus Trump. We need to realize what we're supporting. We need to realize what we believe in, and we need to realize the ultimate influence that is going to have on not just us, but everyone as a whole. It's
Yeah.
unfortunate that we have people who believe in, you know, racism. It's unfortunate that we have people who believe that it's okay to, you know, raid the Capitol building. You know, it's unfortunate that we had those people, but that's a result of growing up and not really. I personally feel like it's a result of, you know, growing up and not really understanding the bigger picture or understanding what you really want to do for yourself to make this world a better place, because that's not how you make this world a better place. And, you know, just to summarize it, just to sum it up, adulting in a lump sum is something that you need to cherish. It's something that never ends, and it's something that you need to take seriously, because it's so easy to get lost and run laps away from yourself.
We've seen it happen. I mean, obviously not to put names out there. We've seen people we went to school with, they get caught up in the wrong way, with the wrong people, and
Hmm.
they end up in places where I'm sure they didn't envision to be, but that's what happened because they got caught up in the wrong things.
Yeah, I mean, there are most times where you could do things off of impulse, but there are times where you do something off of impulse and you get in trouble for it. You know, your life changes for
Yeah,
the worse. You know, so
yeah,
you know, it's just something for everyone to think about. You know, because I want to see the world going in a good direction. I want everyone to be happy. I want everyone to enjoy their time here while they have it, because we don't know when our time is going to end. You know, so while we're here, we all need to figure out ways to kind of come together, share ideas, share plans, share love, spread love, and be the most influential individuals we can be for one another, because that's the only way we get past the pandemic. It's the only way we separate, or we bring together the rich and the poor, and we all become rich. And you know,
right,
I just believe that there are different ways to do different things, and we all need to, you know, wake up and smell the coffee.
right. And I'll say something my mom always says. She always says, make your dash count, because we're born whatever year, we have a dash and then we die. So just make the time here count,
That's
and
true.
you'll be all set. You
That
know,
that
and
timeline is everything.
right, the dash is everything. So before I get into my hear me out topic, did you have anything else you want to say about yours?
That's it. That's all I have for mine.
Is it okay? So for my hear me out topic, I'm going to discuss how to not become dumb after school. I just feel as though like once you graduate, you get that expensive piece of paper. It's easy to get caught up in a routine of what I need to do to get by for just today, as opposed to
Right.
like staying in the know and like exercising your brain, so to speak. They always say that's like the most important muscle in your body. Just like absorbing new information that'll help you be able to have different conversations about different things. I'm a believer in knowing a little about a lot as opposed to a lot about a little. I just like to confidently go into different rooms with different people, different from different walks of life, and feel like I can hold a conversation about anything. So I think in school, you kind of have to, I mean, you literally have to know about different things to be able to regurgitate it on a test. And if not, like you end up having to take a class over. That's wasted money. That's
That's
literally
facts.
tuition money, right? That's literally tuition money that you're just throwing out the window if you're
Yeah.
not able to, know it well enough to pass the class and do well and stuff like that to know it on a test. So, but once you graduate, you don't have to do that. So that's why I think it's easy to get caught up in that routine of, oh, I just have to remember wake up, brush my teeth, uh, work, maybe go to the gym, stay on top of my hygiene, stuff like that. Like those are things you have to do, and that's about it. Anything else is just like extra. So I think
Yeah.
it's important to just like always, learn new things. For me personally, like I picked up learning the keyboard. throughout the pandemic. That's just something I want to do for fun, learn music and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And I'm probably gonna look up other hobbies. I'd like to learn more about the stock market and finance, things of that nature. Just so that way, I feel like I can hold enough conversations now, but I feel like you're always learning. That's a part of life. Like you never really stop being a student. I feel like. What are your
true.
thoughts on that?
Well, I definitely agree with that topic. That topic makes a lot of sense. It's something that is relevant to
Mm,
our lives as adults right now.
right.
And the reason why I say that is because, like you said, it's so easy to get caught up in the whole let me brush my teeth, let me wash my face, let me get a cup of coffee and get out the door. Like, it's so easy to just sit down and do that and make that every single day for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also important to know that the same way technology is evolving and changing, like for instance, let's take a look at Apple. Back in the day, they released the first iPhone, and then the evolution of that device, and then devices that followed, the iPad, the MacBook, um, the Apple
Watch.
Watch, everything that followed is evolution. And as humans, technically, we're not supposed to be stagnant. We're supposed to evolutionize. We're supposed to change, and while we're changing, we're supposed to understand and adapt to the world around us. So
Mm-hmm.
if we're like you said, you picked up the keyboard right now. Everyone is trying to create their own business. If you become really good at that keyboard, eventually one day you can start giving out like lessons, virtual
Right.
lessons, or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, that's huge for the future because the future is going to be something that's more so virtual. People are already working from home, getting things done from home. You can order groceries from home. You don't have to go to the
Yeah.
store anymore. So we're gonna people that are outside, I feel, are gonna just be like essential workers, and people inside are gonna be the ones actually working, minus like the doctors. I mean, essential workers, like I said. But moving forward, we all definitely have to start adapting to the world around us. We need to understand that things can switch up, just like we were forced to switch when we first had the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Because when this thing first hit, everyone was so caught up in going on vacations, getting out the door, saying that, hey, the middle class is going to be wiped out. I'm rich. I don't care. I'm poor. I want to be rich. And that back and forth saga that just kept continuing. And then coronavirus. And then boom, everything just got shut down. And
Mm-hmm.
that kind of forced us all to realize, hey, we're all human. We're all going to
Right.
go through something. We can all lose things just like that. And as you know, just as much as me, we live in South Orange. So in our area, we have a lot of big businesses that are harbored in the village. Look how many businesses had to shut down. Look how many businesses had to close down. If you look across the street from, there's like a famous bar in South Orange for everyone who's watching. It's called Bunny's. Across the street from Bunny's, they built these pretty
Luxury
modernized
apartments.
establishments. Yeah, luxury apartments, and then they also had like luxury and fancy businesses.
Yeah.
It was literally like $80 to get a shape up for your hairline. Like
Mm-hmm.
those are the kind of prices that they had going on over there.
For that
They
much, you
would
better
have
stay there
people.
for a month.
What was that?
For $80 for a shape up, you better keep me fresh for a month, man.
Exactly. So they had that going on, and they had people coming off the subway straight from the city to go in there and spend that kind of money because they saw everything else around the village and they felt like that was the right thing to do. And then the pandemic hit, the businesses suffered. People started to realize that $80 for a shape up made no sense at all. And then
Right.
people started losing their jobs. People started trying to hold on to their money. So the point of all this is to basically let you know that we need to always be on our toes. We need to be on our P's and Q's. And the only way to do that is to be open to learning new things. Is to be open to picking up that tablet or whatever you pick up and just
Yeah.
reading a book. There are so many like books that we can choose from to learn different things. There are so many things you can just go to the store and pick up. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
really want to be someone who's open to learning, you can literally go to Best Buy, pick up a guitar, take it home, go on YouTube and start learning how to play the guitar or like anything.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, once you harbor that knowledge, there's someone out there who's thinking the same way you're thinking. There might even be someone who starts thinking like that after watching this video. So if you're someone who
Right.
has something that you can give to the world, or you're someone who's open to learning and you're willing to take that step to learn something new, then I take my hat off to you, because that's something that we all need to learn how to do. It's not just one thing that you do that you're gonna do for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
There are so many of us that have gone to college, accomplished something that we thought we wanted to do, and then when we really thought about it, when we got into the hustle and bustle, we've actually wanted to go back to school to learn something new. So the same thing happens when you get that degree and you step out into the real world, and have to smell that coffee. You want to add anything?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. Just, be able to adapt. Learn new things. It can't hurt
Yeah, for
anybody,
sure.
even if it's just something. Even if you don't want to make a profit out of it, you just want it for yourself, like a hobby. That's cool too. Just keep your mind fresh. I say, because it's easy to not keep your mind fresh.
Yeah, it's easy to become stagnant and
Yeah.
just say, hey, this is my life, so whatever.
Yep. That's pretty much all I have for that topic. We thank you for joining us for season 2, episode 2 of the What You're Thinking podcast. Stay tuned. We'll be back next week with more good info.